Hi, everyone.
Greetings all. In Ignatius, the letter to the Magnesians, this is the last section of the letter, paragraphs or chapters 12 through 15. And here we go. This is from the Staniforth, Vivian's reading from Staniforth's translation, and we'll also reference Lightfoot and Roberts Donaldson.
My desire is to enjoy every happiness in you, that is, if I am worthy of it. For even though I have chains to wear and you have none, I am still unfit to bear comparison with any one of you. For you, as I know so well, are wholly free from pride, having Jesus Christ within you. And I am aware that any praise for me only makes you more distrustful of yourselves, even as in the words of Scripture, quote, "The righteous man is his own accuser." Chapter 13. Do your utmost to stand firm in the precepts of the Lord and the apostles, so that everything you do, worldly or spiritual, may go prosperously from beginning to end in faith and love, in the Son and in the Father and the Spirit, together with your most reverend bishop and that beautifully woven spiritual chaplet, your clergy and godly-minded deacons. Be as submissive to the bishop and to one another as Jesus Christ was to his Father, and as the apostles were to Christ and the Father, so that there may be complete unity in the flesh as well as in the Spirit. Chapter 14. Knowing how amply filled with God you are, I have been brief in these exhortations. Remember me in your prayers, so that I may win my way to God, and remember the church in Syria too, of which I am an unworthy member. I beg for your united prayers and love in God, so that our Syrian church may be refreshed with a sprinkling of dew from yours. Chapter 15. The representatives of Ephesus send greetings to you from Smyrna, here, where I am writing this. Like yourselves, they are here for the glory of God, and they have been a comfort to me in every way. So too has Polycarp, the Smyrnian bishop. The other churches add their own greetings as well, for the honor of Jesus Christ. And then there's a little close to it. Farewell. See that there is a godly unity among you, and a spirit that is above all divisions, for this is Jesus Christ.
Well, first a couple of notes about language and about quotations. That we've not always been good about filling in the background here, so we should also reference what they're doing when they quote from the Old Testament. Before that, though, I think we should mention again, and we haven't always done this in these readings, that the situation here is a bishop of one church, the biggest missionary church in the world, the Bishop of Antioch, that's Ignatius himself, is going to his martyrdom in Rome. And that's why he's sending out all these epistles, including this one. And what is on his heart as he leaves this world? And it is obviously the state of the churches. And then you go to how he thinks the unity of the churches can be maintained and preserved in the middle paragraphs here for sure. It's all about that. But before we get to that, the language and the quotations, first of all, the quotation here at the end of the first paragraph, when he says, as it is written, the righteous man is his own accuser. How did that read in yours?
The righteous man is his own accuser, and it does have a star saying that this is a Septuagint rendering of Proverbs 18, verse 17.
So do we know, if we're coming from the ex-witness world, that the Bible that is being used here and by the Greek-speaking church, which is Ignatius and all these churches, are Greek speaking, do we know that they're using the Septuagint, and what is the implication of that for one of your badge doctrines, namely the Tetragrammaton, and that it was taken out?
Yeah.
Do you know that the Tetragrammaton was not in almost all of the copies of the Septuagint we have? And where it is, it's written in Hebrew, but not to be read out loud. So no accident then that it's not being used by the early church, and it's never quoted from an Old Testament text within the text of the New Testament, nor is it quoted, that is the Tetragrammaton quoted as the legitimate way to render it. It's always Lord, or sometimes God, but most often Lord.
So I think this often tripped me up when I was trying to understand even when the Septuagint was used, who it was used by, and the fact that they would be reading it in the synagogue. You know, like it just seemed like Christian property to me.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think in terms of the Jews reading from a translation, a Greek language translation, because that's the common language of the people.
Not even the Jews. So, of course, the Gentile churches are not going to go back to the Hebrew text. They wouldn't even understand it anyway. And most Jews would not understand the Hebrew text.
Yeah.
Outside of the Promised Land, it was almost a non-issue.
Yeah. Just like we wouldn't read from the Greek in a church. We would read English.
Of course. Then the other language issue here is just to ask, would you ever hear this kind of language in a kingdom hall? First of all, in the paragraph 14, knowing as I do that ye are full of God. And the language in paragraph 13 about being in the Son, in the Father, and in the Spirit. By the way, that's obviously incipient Trinitarianism. That's what the Trinity's all about. The fact that you have the Father, the Son, and the Spirit in you by the Spirit itself indwelling in you, right?
Yeah. Even language-wise, you hear them talking about the precepts of the Lord, the Son, the Father, the Spirit. No Tetragrammaton. It's it's just not the way we would talk. We wouldn't talk that way. We don't have the language of the New Testament writers, nor do we have the language of the early church.
No, and even if you're among those who is currently fighting the Trinitarian debate, whether or not it's a possibility or not, even if you haven't come to the conclusion that the language of Ignatius and the language of the New Testament tends in that direction, you have in the first paragraph 12, ye have Jesus Christ within yourselves or within you. Do you talk like that at the Kingdom Hall? And how do you have Jesus Christ in you? Obviously not as a human being. He's not in you, but he's in you in the Spirit. So what do you do with that? Sooner or later you have to figure it out, as the early church did. But the unity that is obviously on his mind and heart at this point. How to maintain the unity in these great churches that already probably have thousands of members. I'm talking about Antioch and Ephesus, maybe Smyrna, but probably Smyrna's a smaller town, so it would have a smaller congregation. But in these huge cities of Ephesus and Antioch that are the center of attention here geographically, how are you going to maintain unity when you have house fellowships, house churches? And he tells you how, right? You're all in the Son, in the Father, and in the Spirit. And as long as the Spirit rules, the only job that the local elders and bishop have
is to maintain it. That's why you're asked to be submissive to them. It's not a test of loyalty. It's like we're the governing body and you must listen to us no matter what we say. No, you listen to those who are watching over you as shepherds of the church.
Yep.
But so that in that way you're submissive. So you make an argument of this when you're a witness, and yet you do the same thing in your own thing. You expect people to listen to the elders, and you actually ask for more. So the governing body is you're supposed to obey them whether you agree with them or not, or whether you see it as biblical or not.
There is a difference, though, which is he's asking for loyalty to your local bishop and elders here.
Yeah.
That's local jurisdiction. But when you're a witness, it's a theocratic pyramid. Yeah. So you have to be submissive to the elders because they're submissive to the circuit overseer. who is also submissive to the district overseer, who is under the governing body.
And it becomes a test of loyalty to them instead of a test of whether or not you're submissive to Christ and to
That's right.
Father. You're obedient to them.
So this is the Protestant model of how church should work, how unity is to be preserved. It's the Presbyterian model, basically elders and a presiding overseer, who you call here the bishop. It's the same idea. It comes from the idea of, like you said, local shepherding, who is the immediate shepherd of the sheep in his congregation. But it's not the version you have, the so-called theocratic version, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, which is a pyramid structure, just like the structure that you resent in the Catholic Church and to some extent in the Eastern churches too, the Orthodox community. But the one you hate the most, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, the Catholics, serves as your model for how to structure the church. No, this is the Presbyterian model. So what else do we have here except that I love the fact that he talks about the churches in Syria. The church that is in Syria, well, he's talking about the city of Antioch primarily, but Antioch is the biggest city in Syria. But then he references not only Ephesus, the Ephesians from Smyrna, and then Polycarp as the bishop of the Smyrna congregation. At this point, he's still a young man. But what have you got here but three of the most important churches in the book of Acts and in Revelation, Ephesus, Smyrna, and Antioch. And that's the core of the early church. So you have to deal, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, with this, and a lot of Protestants also have to do, because they're, many of them at least, into restorationism, as the cults are, right? Which is the doctrines were lost. It's obvious just from this one epistle to the Magnesians that Ignatius is stressing, conserve what you have, which would be the apostolic deposit, which would be planted in the bigger churches of what you then call Christendom.
And this is, when we were looking at it, we were talking about the fact that it's one church ministering to another church, encouraging another church. It's not a governing body, local, some authority figure somewhere else who dictates to all of them.
Yes, Ignatius is not representing some fictional governing body. He's speaking as the bishop of another church, which happens to be the single biggest missionary church of that period.
Yeah. So local church to local church.
Yeah. So what's our link?
Yeah, there was one other thing that I think I had marked. The wording, so just as far as translation goes, the wording in mine was, remember me in your prayers so that I may win my way to God. And I think yours translated using two different words. But you have to realize when you're reading them that this is a translation, a modern translation, trying to give you the gist of what they're saying, just like the Bible translated into English. Words are chosen to get the meaning. So what is it that they say in theirs? Mine says that I may win my way to God.
Yeah, that might be misleading.
Yeah.
Robert Donaldson say that I may attain to God. Lightfoot says that I might reach God.
Yeah.
It's not a major difference, but it is a subtle suggestion, perhaps, that you get the wrong idea.
You could get stumbled up. So oftentimes I think we get stumbled up by just the word that's used. But we have a kind of thought in our head as to what that means.
Yeah, like have a reward. God's going to give me my reward, something like that. He's going to grant me salvation if I'm faithful to the end.
Yeah.
But let's keep in mind he's going to his martyrdom in Rome. All he wants to do is get there and do what he feels that he has to do. And he later will tell the Romans, don't try to discourage me from this. I mean, he could get out of it, maybe, if he said the right words and wrote off his commitment to Christ, but he's not going to. He's requesting them not to do anything when he gets to Rome, right? Because some of them, this is a bit of advanced information about the Roman church in that day, which I think is the last of the letters we'll be dealing with in here. But the Roman church had many influential people in it, people who were high up in the aristocracy of Rome. So they might have wanted to do what they could to prevent him from going to martyrdom.
Just one other thing that I think we talked about before is the centrality of Christ in these letters. Like, no witness would end their letter for the honor of Jesus Christ. We would
Yeah.
never say that. And this, even the last, the farewell, which says, see that there is a godly unity among you and a spirit that is above all divisions, for this is Jesus Christ. So the centrality of Christ and the precepts of the Lord, also talking about Christ.
This is not the name Jehovah, it's the honor of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And in the Roberts Donaldson version, it says in that last farewell, fare ye well in the harmony of God, ye who have obtained the inseparable Spirit, who is Jesus Christ. Who is Jesus Christ, the Spirit? So this identification of the Spirit that is within them with Jesus is very clear here.
Yeah.
And again, incipient Trinitarianism.
Mm-hmm. Filled with God.
So what was our link?
We're linking to a video that is about John chapter 14. How 2 Jehovah's Witnesses lost confidence in their own opinions. John 14 plus the Catholic consensus, so the universal consensus.
Based on John 14 to 16, there's 3 videos altogether if you want to
just keep following the links.
And I've chosen that video as the link because of the word Catholic. He's the one, Ignatius is the one who gives us this word, which you think of as somehow associated with the Roman Church.
Yeah.
But it isn't. Here it's the universal church in its first use, in the way Ignatius and Irenaeus use it in the 2nd century. And yeah, that's about it, I think. I don't have a playlist selected here, but we'll no doubt put one in.
Okay.
See you next time.
Bye.